Did you know that the biggest mistake in BARF is in the amount of viscera you offer your dog or cat? Many well-intentioned owners end up getting this crucial detail wrong. Some offer too many viscera, causing serious poisoning due to excess vitamin A. Others offer too little viscera, causing silent deficiencies of iron, vitamins, and digestive enzymes. Don't fall into the mistake that can compromise the health of your four-legged companion. BARF is powerful when done correctly, but it can be dangerous when we ignore details. Watch until the end and find out how to ensure that your pet receives everything in the right measure. The universe of natural food for dogs and cats, known as BARF, arouses more and more interest among tutors looking for a long, healthy, and balanced life for their pets. But along with curiosity and the desire to offer the best, the most common mistakes also arise, and one of them can seriously compromise the pet's health: the amount of viscera. This detail, which seems simple, is precisely the point at which many tutors get lost, either by offering too little and generating nutritional deficiencies, or by exaggerating and causing intoxication or digestive imbalances. The scene is repeated in homes all over the world. Well-intentioned tutors assemble colorful plates, believing they are on the right track, but behind the anxious gaze of the dog or cat, there is an invisible risk. It all starts with the basic concept of the BARF diet, which is based on the replication of what a carnivorous animal would consume in the wild: muscle meats, fleshy bones, vegetables, and, of course, offal. It is in this last point that the danger lies. Viscera are called superfood in BARF, precisely because they concentrate rare essential nutrients and in quantities that no other part of the animal offers. Liver, kidneys, spleen, and pancreas are rich in fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, as well as key minerals like iron, zinc, and copper. It is these organs that bring the difference between a balanced diet and excellent nutrition. However, what makes the viscera powerful also makes them dangerous when used without discretion. Imagine an owner who, upon seeing his dog or cat devouring pieces of liver with enthusiasm, interprets this scene as a green light to offer generous amounts daily. The result can be an overload of vitamin A, leading to bone, joint, and even neurological problems. On the other hand, another tutor, most afraid of the strange face that his pet makes when trying kidneys or spleen, decides to almost eliminate this part of the diet, thinking that the animal does not need it that much. In this case, the risk is the opposite: lack of vital nutrients, drop in immunity, weakness, and even delay in the development of puppies. The balance is delicate, and the line that separates benefit from harm is thinner than many realize. This is exactly why specialized nutritionists and veterinarians insist so much on the importance of the correct ratio. In BARF, the recommended standard for viscera is around 10 to 15% of the total diet, with half of this percentage reserved exclusively for the liver, considered the most important organ due to its nutritional richness. This detail is not flexible. It is not a suggestion that can be adjusted according to the taste of the tutor or pet. It is a vital rule, and the tutor who ignores this proportion is heading towards serious, often silent health problems that only appear after months or years of incorrect practice. What many do not realize is that errors with viscera are not limited to quantity. There is also the issue of variety. Focusing only on the liver, even within the right amount, is another serious misconception, because each organ provides a different set of nutrients. The liver is rich in vitamin A, but the kidney brings vitamin B12 and iron in high bioavailability. The spleen is concentrated in heme-iron, essential to prevent anemia, and the pancreas contains digestive enzymes that help the animal's body to better process food. It's like building a team. It's no use having only the star. You need balance in all positions so that the result is harmonious. The tutor who understands this realizes that varying is as important as measuring. Without variety, even the correct ratio can become a risk. A continuous excess of liver, for example, can lead to hypervitaminosis A, while the absence of other organs leaves nutritional gaps that manifest themselves in energy drops, dull fur, repeated allergies, and even chronic diseases. At the same time, there's a strong emotional aspect. The tutor, out of love and anxiety to see the pet well, often confuses the desire to please with nutritional needs. Who has never given just one more piece because the dog's gaze seemed to ask for it? Who has never given in to a cat's initial refusal, taking the food out of the diet instead of patiently insisting until adaptation? It is in this human weakness that error lies. Animals depend on their owners for everything, including for their meals to be correct, even if at times the appetite or acceptance does not immediately correspond. The responsibility is enormous, and making a mistake in the amount of viscera is one of those slips that do not forgive easily. In the long run, it can be costly in terms of health, veterinary consultations, medications, and above all, the animal's quality of life. That is why understanding the importance of viscera is not just a technical detail of BARF, but an ethical commitment to the well-being of the pet. Knowing exactly how much to offer and how to vary it is what separates the conscious owner from the one who, even with good intentions, puts the animal at risk. And understanding this now can avoid months of suffering in the future, both for the owner and the animal. But the central question remains how to calculate in a practical way this proportion of viscera in the daily routine. And most importantly, how to make sure that the diet is balanced without falling into both extremes, excess or lack. The first trap that tutors fall into when trying to calculate the amount of viscera is to rely only on the eye meter. Putting portions on the plate without scales, believing that experience or habit is enough, is the most common mistake. But at BARF, every gram makes a difference. Imagine a 10-kilogram dog that needs 300 grams of food a day. Within this portion, 30 to 45 grams should be viscera, half of which was exclusively liver. It seems little, but if the owner decides to give 50 grams of liver in a single meal, the excess of vitamin A already begins to accumulate in the body. This accumulation is not easily expelled. It lodges in the bones, joints, and liver of the animal itself, transforming what should be a source of health into a silent trigger of disease. Excess viscera can manifest itself in several ways. The most immediate is diarrhea, which many owners mistake for a simple food adaptation. However, when the problem becomes frequent, it is a sign of overload. Another common symptom is vomiting, especially when there is exaggeration in the liver. In the medium term, changes appear in the fur, which loses shine, becomes brittle, and may even fall out in clumps. In the long term, the most serious consequence is chronic vitamin A poisoning. Poisoned animals develop stiffness in the joints, pain when moving, bone deformities, and even difficulty breathing. These are signs that often arrive at the veterinary office at an advanced stage, when reversal is almost impossible. On the other hand, offering too little viscera is no less dangerous. Without the right organs, the pet starts to suffer from silent deficiencies. Iron deficiency, for example, leads to anemia that leaves the animal tired, without energy, and more susceptible to diseases. The lack of vitamin B12, found in high concentration in the kidney, causes neurological changes, such as apathy, tremors, and even seizures. The absence of the spleen in the diet, on the other hand, reduces the intake of heme iron, the most easily absorbed, increasing the risk of muscle weakness and loss of physical resistance. It is as if the tutor was condemning the pet to a life in slow motion, without vitality and with the body functioning at the limit. The most curious thing is that these errors do not happen in bad faith, but because of the difficulty of finding clear and reliable information. Many internet guides oversimplify, while others are complex to the point of confusing the beginner tutor. Between forums, social media groups, and tips from acquaintances, the amount of contradictory information is so great that, in an attempt to get it right, many people end up making mistakes. It is in this scenario that two profiles of tutors emerge: the anxious, who exaggerates to ensure that nothing is missing, and the cautious, who takes almost everything away for fear of causing harm. Both well-intentioned, both mistaken. The solution, therefore, starts with two indispensable tools: kitchen scale and discipline. Without measuring, there is no way to get it right. The scale should be used daily until the tutor acquires a real notion of the portions. But even when that notion is already present, relying solely on experience is no substitute for accuracy. After all, the difference between 30 and 40 grams of viscera may not seem like much to human eyes, but for a small dog, it can mean a double dose of nutrients that should be controlled. For large dogs, the lack of a few grams can make room for deficiencies that harm the entire immune system. Another crucial point is constancy. Many owners think that if they didn't give liver today, they can double the amount tomorrow, but the animal's body does not work that way. The excess on one day does not compensate for the lack on the next. On the contrary, it can generate nutrient peaks that overload the body and leave the metabolism unregulated. Just like in humans, the key lies in daily balance, not random compensations. This constancy is what will ensure that the levels of vitamins and minerals remain within the ideal, without harmful ups and downs. Even with precise measurements, the question still remains how to ensure that the animal accepts all types of viscera, without the tutor falling into the temptation of excluding an organ just because the pet rejected it at first. This issue is one of the biggest difficulties in practice and requires patience, strategy, and gradual adaptation. After all, dogs and cats are not born accustomed to strong flavors such as kidney or spleen. Adaptation can be slow, but it is essential for the diet to really work. But how, in practice, to overcome the refusal of pets in the face of the viscera and ensure that the variety remains on the plate without compromising the right proportion? The refusal of dogs and cats in the face of the viscera is one of the most frustrating moments for any tutor who is starting at BARF. Liver, for example, is usually easily accepted, since it has a more pleasant flavor for most animals. But when it comes time to offer kidneys, spleen, or pancreas, the reaction is quite different. The pet smells, licks, sometimes even bites, but soon refuses and moves away. This behavior leads many owners to believe that the animal simply doesn't like it, and therefore it does not need that food. This is where the trap lies. Refusal is not a sign of unnecessity, but of lack of habit. Dogs and cats in the domestic environment have lost, over the generations, direct contact with whole prey, where the viscera were a natural part of the meal. Therefore, the strong taste and smell of some organs may seem strange at first. The adaptation needs to be conducted by the tutor with patience and strategy. One of the most effective ways is gradual introduction, mixing small amounts of the most rejected viscera with meats that the animal already likes. At first, the portion can be minimal, almost imperceptible, and gradually increase as the pet gets used to it. This process can take days or weeks, but it ensures that the animal accepts it naturally, without trauma, and without the tutor having to give up the variety. Another strategy is the use of different textures. Some viscera, such as kidneys and pancreas, have a softer consistency and can be offered slightly frozen, which reduces the smell and facilitates acceptance. It is also possible to chop it into smaller pieces and mix it with other components of the meal. For cats, which are even more selective, the key is insistence. Often they need repetition before accepting a new flavor. Taking the food away on the first refusal is the most common mistake, as it reinforces selectivity. Instead, the tutor must persist, always respecting the correct amount until the pet understands that flavor as part of the routine. But it is not enough just to overcome the barrier of acceptance. It is necessary to make sure that the proportion of each viscera within the diet is correct. Remembering that, within the 10 to 15% of total viscera, half must be liver, and the other half must be divided among the other organs. This means that if the tutor offers 40 grams of viscera per day, 20 should be liver, and the other 20 should be distributed among kidney, spleen, and pancreas. This balance is what guarantees a complete supply of nutrients without excesses and deficiencies. At this point, another factor that usually confuses tutors comes into play: the difference between dogs and cats. Although the basis of the ratio is the same, cats have different metabolisms and specific nutritional needs. They depend, for example, on taurine, which is found in large quantities in the heart, an organ that, in BARF, is not classified as viscera, but as muscle meat. Many tutors make the mistake of thinking that by including too much heart, they are covering the need for viscera, when in fact they are unbalancing the diet. The heart is important, but it does not replace the liver, kidney, or spleen. Cats that receive little variety of organs quickly develop vision problems, weakness, and heart disease. In dogs, the most common consequence is a drop in immunity and greater vulnerability to infections. Another essential aspect is the quality of the viscera. Buying organs of dubious origin or storing them incorrectly can turn a highly nutritious food into a source of contamination. Viscera spoil quickly, accumulate bacteria easily, and should be frozen soon after purchase in small portions to avoid waste and risk of food poisoning. When thawing, they should be used immediately, never refrozen, as this process degrades nutrients and increases the proliferation of microorganisms. Many cases of diarrhea in pets that consume BARF do not come from excess or deficiency, but from poor food preservation. This set of precautions, correct proportion, variety, gradual adaptation, and food quality, is what separates the successful practice of BARF from the one that generates health problems. But even disciplined and attentive tutors still have a doubt how to know in practice if the pet is really receiving the ideal amount of viscera and if the diet is working in a balanced way. Knowing if the pet is receiving the correct amount of viscera does not depend only on calculations and measurements. The animal's body speaks, and it is up to the tutor to learn to listen to the signals. The first point of observation is the fur. A well-nourished animal has a shiny, firm coat without excessive shedding. If the fur starts to become opaque, coarse, or with unusual loss, it may be an indication of imbalance, both due to lack and excess of nutrients. The second sign is in the stool. They should be consistent, firm, but not dry. Very liquid stools, with a strong and persistent odor, usually indicate excess viscera, while very light and hard stools can indicate deficiency. Behavior is also a powerful thermometer. A pet balanced in its diet has stable energy, plays, runs and rests in natural cycles. Apathy, excessive tiredness, or, on the contrary, abnormal agitation can be a reflection of a poorly adjusted diet. That is why follow-up with a veterinarian, nutritionist, or natural food specialist is indispensable. The tutor can and should have discipline in measuring and adapting, but only a professional with exams in hand is able to identify deficiencies or silent intoxications. Regular blood tests are the tool that reveals, for example, if there is an excess of vitamin A circulating, if iron levels are adequate, or if there is a deficiency of B vitamins. Another important detail is to adapt the proportions according to the stages of life. Puppies have different needs than adults, which in turn differ from those of seniors. In puppies, excess vitamin A can impair bone growth, While in the elderly, a lack of iron and vitamin B12 aggravates problems of anemia and loss of muscle mass. In addition, sick animals with conditions such as kidney or liver failure may need fine-tuning that only a veterinarian can determine. The most common mistake is to apply the same rule to all pets in the house, ignoring age, weight, clinical condition, and even activity level. Two dogs of the same size can have totally different needs if one is sedentary and the other extremely active. Basically, the error in the amount of viscera is a reflection of a single point: haste. Tutors who rush to implement BARF without studying, without planning, and without measuring invariably make mistakes. But those who understand that natural food is a long-term commitment, which requires discipline, observation, and professional monitoring, reap the results: healthier, longer-lived animals with quality of life that is reflected in every gesture. The tutor who learns to respect the proportions of viscera is not only avoiding health problems, he is building a more solid future for his partner. The final message is clear: not too much, not too little. Balance is what sustains health in BARF, and in the viscera is the most critical point of this balance. By understanding that each gram has a direct impact on the pet's body, the tutor puts himself in a position of conscious responsibility, where love translates into real care. Because offering guts correctly isn't about pleasing or making it easier. It's about making sure dogs and cats live not just longer, but better.